and Logan Sargeant on his home race.
Logan!
P10.
He scores a point
It
at home.
It's a real shame for Oscar Piastri,
Yeah.
though. He was going to be my driver of the day before the
I
show.
thought he was pretty slow all weekend.
He had a tough weekend. I think polar opposites for Ferrari and for McLaren this weekend. Yeah, I've given up the goose on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Giving up the goose.
Giving up the goose. We've got
I
loads
never thought I'd hear Matisse say giving up the goose.
Sometimes I just come out with these statements.
Good morning and
Oh, dear.
welcome.
Oh no. Oh God, it's begun.
It's begun. It was Texas week and good morning. We are going to dissect here on Track GP the Texas Grand Prix. For anyone that didn't see what happened last night, obviously Max won. We can all go
Obviously, yeah.
home. We can all go home. That's what we've got to
Well,
talk about,
there's some
really.
big headlines.
Was
There
it
are
that
big
easy, yeah?
headlines. It was not that easy at all. Good morning, Matisse. Good morning, Joe.
Stress.
Nice for us to be back together.
Yeah.
I know, it feels like
I
it's March.
know.
Close. I was this close to winning.
This close, but you didn't, and in turn ended up disqualified. So
Yeah.
we'll get into that. It was a great day again for Red Bull. In turn, turned out to be a brilliant day for the McLarens as well after their promotion. Bad day for Mercedes and Ferrari. Charles Leclerc started on the grid, P1. That lasted for all of...
And then that's the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
It was a great
It
race.
started-
He won it.
He
It
won
was
it.
it was great.
Into turn one.
It literally lasted
Lando
all of 3
gone.
seconds.
He
I
didn't
think.
drop from first to sixth and then get disqualified. That didn't happen.
That didn't happen. I want to ask you, Joe, because again, they've done really well during quali.
Yeah.
To be starting P1 and P4, I think, for signs respectively, and turn one, it's over.
Yeah.
What is going on?
I mean, I think
with you.
Charles out-qualified the car. So I think the car shouldn't have been in first place. He did really well to put it there. I think realistically, we were never really expecting a podium.
Definitely,
I mean, we ended up with one
ended
somehow,
up,
but
yeah.
Carlos Sainz. But yeah, look, we were always going to struggle. And we saw in the sprint, the thing that blew my mind with Charles Leclerc's strategy this weekend was that we saw on the sprint on Saturday how bad the Ferrari was killing its tyres, right? Destroying its tyres.
Also, a terrible track for tyre deck.
Massive, right? Really bad for tyre deck. And Ferrari went, I know what we'll do. We'll put Charles Leclerc on a one-stop strategy from pole. So what? What? No, that's a terrible idea. And he
Terrible.
plummeted down, and then the floor was illegal, and he got disqualified. So absolute disaster for Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, it really was. And I think that, we have expectations still of Ferrari that if you are starting maybe first on the grid, we don't expect to drop down to P6. I think there is that expectation that you should be able to get that car somewhere, even if it's P3 maybe.
Yeah.
And Carlos Sainz has in turn ended up P3, which we will talk about. Matisse, as a Mercedes fan, it looked to be a brilliant day for Lewis, not so much George, until it all unravelled. But we were seeing good race pace, really good race pace from the Mercedes.
I think Mercedes were shocked with how quick they were.
Yeah.
Because they were acting like as if they were just wanting a podium. Didn't want to keep track position. Wanted to... I mean, if they just match Max, I would love to have known if they just match Max's strategy, what would have happened.
Slow pits.
And then to come back, the pits were slow as well. And then when you come back and you're a couple of seconds off him, it just makes me even more angry because it's like we could have actually won that race. But they really didn't understand their own pace. They underestimated themselves. They gave Lewis way too much to do. He was trying to come back through the field again. And he was saying as well before I think it was the first stop, he was saying, listen, my tyres are done and they won't bring him in. So yeah, I'm fuming because I want to win. Like Mercedes, we need to get back to this winning mentality, and it's all good to take second and say, oh, it was a great drive, but you could have won the race.
To be fair, you didn't actually take second.
Well, yeah. I mean, we thought we did.
What would you have been more disappointed if you'd won it and then disqualified?
Definitely.
Yeah, of course.
Oh.
If we had won it and then was disqualified, I would have been fuming.
The heartbreak.
I would have
on
lost
that.
it. I mean, we haven't won a race since 2021
George won
with
one.
Lewis.
George won.
Lewis wise. So
Yeah, Lewis.
yeah, just honestly, just distraught. And then George was struggling all weekend, so I didn't really expect too much from him after watching the qualifying and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, devastated. I don't think we'll get closer than that. To be
On the
honest.
strategy with Lewis, I was so surprised that they didn't just match Max's strategy.
That's the safe thing to
just
do.
keep him out there, because Max was obviously getting past people, but not super easily.
No.
Not the Max that we've seen throughout the season. And the Mercedes race pace is unbelievable. I think if they'd have just matched him and kept Lewis in track position of first, they'd have had a better chance than saying, Lewis, hammer time, and him going, well, I'm 7 seconds behind.
Yeah.
Like, I've got, and to be fair to him, he made it.
He still made it up.
So tight.
Yeah.
Didn't quite have it in the end. But I think they would have had a better shot at winning the race if they'd have kept the track position and said, right, Max, you come at us. Go on, have a go.
Totally agree with you. I think that they should have done that. But again, I feel like people overthink it. And like when you haven't won a race and you're so hell-bent on trying to beat a Red Bull, you don't want to copy their strategy. You want to go their different route and be like, well, if Max is going on to mediums, I'm going to go on hards. If Max is going on to hards, I'm going to go on mediums, and try and do it that way. I thought it was very odd that they kept him out longer, especially when he was leading that race and you could see the tyres were absolutely done, especially when he's telling you the tyres are done. And then obviously the slow pits, I think, are really what kind of ruined the day for him a little bit.
I haven't done the maths on it, but it must be if he'd have done similar pit stop times, he would have been crossing the
and he did do a brilliant job, to try and get that lead. And I'll say as a Red Bull fan, that's the first time, other than, Singapore was just Singapore, it was crazy, but that is the first time this season that I've seen anybody run Max close. And I think if there would have been one extra lap, maybe two. I think we might have seen a different winner. However, it would have not counted.
It was redundant anyway because he was qualified.
Completely redundant. Lovely word, because Hamilton and Leclerc both failed post-race inspections concerning their car's floor and plank underneath. The FIA found them to not be in compliance with Article 3.5.9 of the 2023 F1 technical regulations. Both drivers were in turn disqualified.
I mean, what an absolute cock-up.
Massive cock up.
Mercedes came out afterwards and said, well, look, there's nothing we could have done about it. We only had one practice session. The track is super aggressive on the cars anyway. They're allowed to have a little bit of movement within that wooden plank under the car, but them and Ferrari have done it too much and ultimately paid the biggest price. I think there'll be some very stern conversations happening inside. The craziest thing is that Lewis Hamilton is chasing down Sergio Perez.
I was about to say. Yeah.
And if he had taken second place yesterday, he's within 19 points of Checo with 4 races to go.
Which he would have got.
But because he's disqualified, he's 39 points off Checo.
I think that...
And Checo's going to keep second place. With 4 races, Lewis can't get 39 points, surely.
Yeah. Unless Checo DNFs in maybe a couple of those.
And even then, Lewis has to score high
points,
really high. He'd have to average 10 more points than Checo in every race to the end of the season, which is a huge tally.
Yeah, it would be tight.
It's a real shame. A real shame.
Neither driver actually said anything. They kind of took it on the chin. I mean, I'm sure they will be saying it in their Monday morning meetings, but neither of them really threw their toys out the pram or anything, because I guess... the rules are the rules. Yeah, but that comes back onto your team, doesn't it?
Well, they'll be throwing their toys out the pram when they go into their debriefs with their team, I think. But in regards to the interviews, I mean, there's nothing they can say.
No, however, it was a good day for McLaren, for Lando, and for Carlos Sainz. So you had one. One up there.
Carlos was quick.
Carlos
was pacey. I mean, it's always sad when you see... I mean, I don't think we actually saw the radio happen, but we saw Charles let Carlos through. Pretty, no fight whatsoever going because he was quicker, also on the better strategy, on the better tyre, and was a quicker driver. But that was just, I mean, horrible to see that happen to Charles. I was gutted. But with the disqualifications, Carlos grabs a podium. It's sort of a bit of a hollow podium when you're not actually on the podium, and then they just give it to you later. But still, I'll take it. I love Carlos.
Still waiting for a Lando win as well.
Honestly, I was so rooting because obviously that I have a little bit of soft spot, don't I, for McLaren and Lando and Oscar. And I have to say, I really wanted him to win that race. If it's not going to be a Red Bull, I always want it to be Lando. But again, does that car have enough to get it over the line in those situations? I don't think so. I think when you just see the difference of that Mercedes coming up behind it, I think there's no battle. But I do think Lando did a brilliant job.
He extracted a lot out of
it. And P3 is super respectable for you to be getting out of a McLaren that was struggling in the first half of this season. I think they have to be applauded. Real shame for Oscar Piastri, though. He was going to be my driver of the day before the show.
I thought he was pretty slow all weekend.
He had a tough weekend. I think polar opposites for Ferrari and for McLaren this weekend, because half your team, yes, you'd be jubilant that you're on the podium, but then the other half are picking up 0 points.
Yeah.
So it's tough. And there's been some other, I think there's been, when I look at the final grid, I mean, obviously the 2 disqualifications meant that there was a couple crept up the grid automatically, but there's some shock results in there.
Yeah, there are. Let's actually have a look at the grid. So this is how it's ended now after the disqualifications. So P1 was Max, race winner. Lando up to second. Carlos Sainz up to third. Sergio Perez up to fourth. George Russell fifth. Pierre Gasly sixth, who had a nice little weekend in the Alpine. Neither here nor there.
Good few points for him.
Lance Stroll, who started, may I add, on the pit lane.
He did a great job.
P7.
Yeah.
And we will talk about him because we are very critical of him, but we have to give him some flowers. Yuki Tsunoda up to P8. Alex Albon up to P9. And Logan Sargeant on his home race.
Logan!
P10!
He scores a point at home!
You could see he really did not want to be at the back of that grid yesterday. Luckily for him, there was 3 DNFs and 2 disqualifications. So that did help him out a little bit.
That helps.
Hey, a point's a point.
A point's a point.
And at your home race.
We take it.
You've got to say, it's hard to score a point in F1, and he's done it.
Absolutely.
He's done what Nick De Vries couldn't do. So fair play.
Absolutely. After him is Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas, who also started on the pit lane. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo. Zhou Guanyu also in the tractor that we call the Alfa Romeo. Kevin Magnussen on 14th, and Danny Rick in 15th. Now, Danny Rick in 15th, I think, was more to do with the strategy and what they were doing. At one point, he was doing really well, and then they went in for a pit, and I think I don't know what happened in that pit, but it was a little bit sad. He just kind of fell away. And then we've got DNS from Fernando Alonso, who'd also had a brilliant race before that. Went out on lap 49. Oscar Piastri, Esteban Ocon, and disqualifications for Lewis and Charles.
I'm really annoyed actually that another thing for the Lewis disqualification is that if he had caught Perez and Perez had finished third in this championship, I think his job would be at risk.
Oh, yeah, you make a fair point.
And that would have been very intriguing.
I don't think they're going to get rid of him, though.
They won't now because he'll finish second. But I think if he had finished third, I think there would have been a conversation.
Because there's a massive difference between having to get, for Lewis to get second, having to outscore him by 10 points a race or outscore him by 5 points a race is doable. And he would have got, and then I think you're right. Yeah. Checo's under a huge amount of pressure.
I think that disqualification just saved Checo's job.
Yeah, you may well be right, mate.
Do you think he had a good race though yesterday, Checo?
No. You never have a good race if you're not on a podium.
Yeah, but if you think
Bull.
he started P9? P9. I guess, he was, okay, so technically he finished P5, which has now been upgraded to P4. I don't know. He's all right. He's good at coming from the back of the grid. He did make Q3. He did make Q3 this weekend.
Maybe he should be driving a different car then if he wants to come from the back of the grid so often.
I don't know.
I'm trying to find a silver lining for Checo.
It wasn't great, wasn't terrible.
But next week we're in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
We're in Mexico.
Well, he was basically in Mexico this week.
Home Grand Prix.
There's fans everywhere.
Home Grand Prix.
And Max will win it.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Max is going to be
Checo needs to win his own Grand Prix. He does.
No chance. There's no possibility
Checo
Checo wins.
Let's say they're first and second. Do you think there's ever a planet where Max is gone?
No, absolutely.
I would be disappointed in Max if he did that.
He won't.
It's
do
not
that,
in his character.
No.
Max will not do that. But if Checo is leading that race at any point, he needs to win that race.
100%.
You're at home. You need to do it for your fans. They've been going through it this year.
I mean, it'd be amazing if Checo won it. Can you imagine the
I'd
celebrations,
love
the
it.
party,
I'd love it.
the redemption arc for Checo? It would be awesome.
But I think Max won't let it happen.
He'd literally need Max to have DNF.
It has to be. Max is going to be so quick.
Oh, I wonder what would happen though, right? Let's say that they are first and second and Checo is first, but obviously Max has more race pace. Do you think Christian Horner would be like, no, Max, just let him stay there?
Nope.
I mean, can you imagine the scenes if Max sort of does him in the last 3 corners or something?
Perez. Do you know what? If Perez had been performing this season and he had been helping Max with his title push and with the constructors, I think there would have been a little bit more lenience. Okay, maybe we'll give him this one. He hasn't really performed this year, and Max will feel like he's almost been carrying the team. So he's not gonna. He has been carrying the team. So he's not gonna be doing anybody any favors. He's gonna be. I don't owe you anything after what's been happening.
I mean,
he
does owe him a little bit for Abu Dhabi.
That was a long time ago. He won't remember that.
He definitely won't.
Max won't remember that.
We remember it.
What was the opportunity that Max had to give him a favor? What was it? Brazil.
Did
he care then? No. So he doesn't. He definitely doesn't care now.
No, he did not. He did not care, did he?
No, he didn't. Anyway, Verstappen did have a strong drive. He went from first to sixth, 50th win in
Sixth
F1.
to first.
Yes, did I say that? What did I
You
say?
said first. You did the Charles Leclerc.
Oh, sorry.
First to
It's
sixth.
6th to 1st.
I wish Verstappen went from first to
sixth.
sixth.
Yes, 6th to 1st. It's 50th win in F1. He's now the 5th in all-time F1 race winners. And also Logan Sargeant's point is the first point for an American driver in F1 since Michael Andretti in 1993. So
Wow,
fair play.
Big credit for him for what he did.
Just on that, do you think that does that buy Sargeant a bit more time? Or do you think his P45 is still in the post?
If Williams have their vision distorted, maybe it buys him more time, I think. But if they want Liam Lawson, they should go and get him.
100%.
And I think he'd be unbelievable. Him and Albon as a pairing, I'd love to see it. When 5 cars DNF, as great as it is to see him in the 10th position, I don't think that should enhance his position that much, unless they're got a couple screws loose.
No, there's absolutely there's no chance. Also, I was looking at this yesterday. So obviously Red Bull are at the top with 704, just to give some context for that. So Williams is 7. So they're the top of the lower half, which I think is kind of about where they would want to be. I think that's where they would have dreamed to be a couple years ago. So if you look at it from 6th down, Alpine, who've had a pretty poor season anyway, Williams 7th, Alfa Romeo's, who are terrible, in 8th, Haas in 9th, and then AlphaTauri in 10th with just 7 points. I don't think a car that is meant to be a part of Red Bull should be sitting bottom of that grid, behind a Haas, behind an Alfa Romeo. I just don't think that's okay.
It is weird, isn't it? The AlphaTauri situation, that it is really slow. And by the way, Yuki Tsunoda ended up with 5 points this weekend, which is absolutely because they got the fastest lap as well.
Yeah, right at the end.
Ricardo got the fastest lap, but because he was outside of the top 10 positions, it wouldn't count. So they stole it off themselves, the fastest lap, and managed to get it right. And Yuki Tsunoda 5 huge points.
That makes up for all the times he finised 11th.
He likes finishing 11th. He likes it though.
Huge for them.
Yeah, but I think there's a big problem with AlphaTauri. I want to see lots of stuff going on, during the break, because I just don't think a team, football brain, a team that is associated with Red Bull should be bottom of that pack. Definitely not.
And they're sandwiching it, aren't they? They're sandwiching the constructors.
Really are. Lando, as we mentioned, really good from him. There is a potential, I guess, that they could finish 3rd in the constructors.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be tight.
What's the points, actually?
And Lando could potentially, I guess, finish 4th. In the drivers.
The difference between Ferrari are 327 and McLaren are on 239. They've gone above Aston now. It will be tight, but
they'd have to Ferrari would have to have a couple of really bad weekends.
I mean, that's doable.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's very very possible. And I think Ferrari will manage to hold on.
Okay, well, here's a different one in the drivers. So it's Max, Perez, Hamilton, Alonso, Sainz. Alonso is on 183. Sainz is on 168. Leclerc is on 159. Norris is on 156.
I mean, I think Alonso is going to end up the bottom out of those 4.
Yeah.
I think that Aston Martin is just absolutely tumbling away.
Yeah.
I think there's a strong chance Norris could end up 4th.
Yeah. And what a season that would be. Can you believe
that would be insane,
that recovery?
Actually, to be honest.
Really good.
It would be.
Really
I don't think Alonso's he should be able to do that.
He is extracting so much out of that McLaren and showing that he is still, I think, the better driver. I mean, there's been so much hype around Piastri recently, but I think Norris is showing I am still the number 1 driver in this thing. But he still hasn't got a win. That's got to be sort of digging away at the back of his.
Piastri got a sprint, didn't he?
Piastri got a sprint, which can't, sort of.
It's like a win with an asterisk.
P2s for Lando.
And again yesterday, disqualification, another P2.
It's very difficult to win a race when you've got Max in front of you. It is difficult. I don't know what to say to you. It is very difficult. Maybe Max should
just leave, and then we'd have a lot more fun. Yeah. We'd have a lot more variety.
Well, it did look fun yesterday for parts of it. I mean, yeah, we spoke about Hamilton and the way he chased him down yesterday. That was absolutely brilliant. We love to see that. Alonso, strong race pace. The rear suspension failure obviously happened, and that caused DNF. There were points for Lance Stroll. They both started in the pit lane. Very funny with the upgrade situation. Put the upgrades on. Actually, no, let's take the upgrades off.
I understand that.
Very random.
It's also sort of strange to be upgrading a car so late in the season.
But I mean, Haas did it.
I kind of get it for the Haas because it's their home race and they had to do something. Didn't work.
Do you think this is like a Lawrence Stroll thing? Like, even though he's Canadian, maybe there was we're close to home. Let's upgrade. Let's go all out.
Maybe.
Maybe. I think also as well, Gasly, big points.
Yeah, huge one.
I mean,
Sixth in the end.
And Ocon was just.
There was some damage. There was some contact, and I actually think that is what caused Piastri to potentially have a bit of a DNF as well.
Yeah.
At that turn one, it did start early on. There was that contact with Ocon and Piastri, and that kind of caused that. But looking at Lance, I think we have to give him credit. He came from the pit lane.
Yeah, no, 100% gets his credit. I think it's been a rough season. There's been a lot of question marks, rightly so, I think, as well, because Aston Martin are trying to go places, and I think, like I've always said, you need two cars to be very competitive, but as a team they have dropped off, and that's going to overshadow now him, not in this race but in general, because the team have dropped off a lot. They're not what they were at the start of the season, so I kind of want to see them kick on at the start of next season now, see where they are, because this season they were such a shock. I didn't see them coming. They just slapped everybody in the face, moved Alpine aside, moved Mercedes and Ferrari out of the way as well, and just started taking podiums. So I want then they just started to just drop off
down a little bit.
So if they next season, the main task will be sustaining the level of performance they started with this season. If they can do that, then they'll obviously be in the fight in the constructors for top three.
And as you say, Abby, credit to Lance Stroll where it's due. Great race, starting from the pit lane, finishing 7th. Fair play to him. He needed to do something decent, and that is something decent, so fair play.
Exactly. We've got to give him credit sometimes where it's due, don't we? Haas, again, we did touch on it. They had their upgrades, American race. What do we really expect from Haas? Do we expect them to be second from bottom?
I expect them to be bought at some point. I expect Gene has to sell it and go somewhere else, because they're just it's a fairly decent driver pairing in Hülkenberg and Magnussen. Obviously Gunter's a big personality as well, so I guess they're fairly marketable with the drive to survive and that sort of thing. But I just don't think, the car is so deggy. It just destroys the Pirelli tyres. That how far can you get realistically in a season when your car's just absolutely shredding the rubber apart? So what can they expect? Well, to maybe be trying to sneak a couple of tenths or ninths.
I felt like they were doing that.
But
Hulkenberg's had good qualities,
but the car can't do it for 59 laps or wherever we are.
I feel like in seasons gone past, they weren't rock bottom of the pack, and they are when they had Mazepin,
they were awful.
But the car itself, they were still picking up the odd points here and there. They weren't. I don't remember them being as bad. Maybe we're looking at Williams being the worst team on the grid. Now we're looking at Williams. They have improved. We can see that. But I just don't really see the improvement anywhere when it comes to
They did make strides forward, but Haas they were quite bad before with Mazepin. Mazepin was horrendous.
Yeah, but that was just a weird situation.
Schumacher was a weird.
They're not really bringing it in the wall, though.
No.
I said they got two.
They got two competent drivers, though.
Yeah, decent drivers. It's just that the car is nowhere near competitive with the if you compare it to like the Williams, it's just not as good as the Williams.
But the Williams wasn't a competitive car, and they've developed it to be a competitive car.
Yeah.
So
exactly,
whatever they need to do, they need to do it quick,
better.
Time. Those two drivers are capable of getting points, though.
Yeah, 100%.
Sneaking a couple points.
They definitely are. I mean,
although
if you're looking,
I have been disappointed with Magnussen this season.
Yeah, Magnussen's been disappointing. I think
Nick has been good.
Hulkenberg's had good qualifying. His qualifying's
been
been good, but Magnussen, not so good.
Definitely. So before we wrap, All Female F1 Academy concluded its first season at the Circuit of the Americas over the weekend. Spanish racer Marta Garcia claiming the title. So good though to see women that potentially are going to end up on the track. Bianca Bustamante, she's at McLaren now.
Yeah, Susie Wolff we've seen in the past as well, being an F1 car. I think that is their plan, is to have a a female driver on the grid at some point, which would be amazing to see.
I'd love to see that. Can you imagine like female going toe to toe with like Verstappen and Hamilton at the front?
Love it.
My days,
Love
it'd be
it.
Brilliant.
Bring it on, man. Bring it on.
Absolutely, all for
Awesome.
girl power.
I'd love that.
All for it. We will be back for Mexico, won't we? We'll see what happens.
Yes.
Max will win it. Max is going to be so quick there. I'm calling it now. I know it's only Monday. Max is going to be so quick in Mexico. It's just made for him.
He's not going to give Checo anything.
Well, I think we're done keeping Checo in check, to be fair.
Oh yeah, I've given up the goose on that one.
Yeah, definitely.
Giving up the goose.
Giving up the goose. We've got loads
No
to-
idea Matisse say giving up the goose.
Sometimes I just come out with these statements that you just don't expect.
I think it is an actual expression.
No, it
It
is.
is.
It's just not something I expected
It's not
you
from
to
me,
say.
but you know, I thought I
We've
might
got
throw it in
loads
there.
to come this week, though. Of course, we've got preview on Thursday, and then we've got all the action over the weekend for you as well as a podcast next Monday. Stay with us for all of your racing news. We are on Track GP. I'm Abby. This is Matisse, and that's Joe.
And that's the goose.